Hi everyone, my name is Pragna Nidumolu, and I'm the founder of EcoTeens, which is a nonprofit initiative to bring together people from all across the world to talk about sustainability and how youth can play a role in mitigating climate change. And today we have a very special guest, Leo Pongeluppe. He is a socio-environmental impact expert and assistant professor at the Wharton School of Business at UPenn. As a Leonard J. Horowitz Faculty Scholar, his research focuses on stakeholder management and socioeconomic development, examining how organizational design and governance impact the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, like poverty reduction, environmental conservation, and healthcare. Leo employs mixed research methods, including econometrics and ethnography, with fieldwork in Brazilian favelas and the Amazon rainforest. Professionally, he co-founded Inspir Matrices, where he helped design Brazil's first social impact bond in collaboration with government and global institutions. He also worked at the Accenture Institute for High Performance, contributing to projects on inclusive and public innovation in developing countries such as Brazil, China, and South Africa. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, of course. And your work is amazing, and I can't wait to get your perspective on this issue. So, jumping right into the questions, your research currently focuses on how organizational design and governance affect the achievement of the United Nations Social Development Goals. So, can you share some key insights on how corporations can restructure their operations to more effectively contribute to goals like poverty alleviation and environmental conservation?
Sure. Well, thank you again, Pragna, for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here, and congratulations on the initiative, right?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. So my research is, again, I try to focus not only on business, but also organizations more broadly, right? So I analyze for-profits or firms, I analyze non-profits, and also public sector, right? And why am I starting by saying this? Because as you know, the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 goals that we have to achieve by 2030, they are very complex problems, right? We are talking about eradicating poverty, eradicating people that are facing situations that they are in hunger or not having access to food, climate change, both in inland but also in the oceans, and healthcare management, gender inequality. Many of those problems are extremely complex, right? So you don't have a silver bullet, you don't have a one and only formula to achieve those. So most of the time what you need is a collaboration, an exchange between different organizations, either public, non-profit, or for-profit, to achieve those goals. What I try to do on my research, specifically focusing on for-profit organizations, is usually to design econometrically, right? Design ways that we can evaluate their impact. So have a clear identification and a clear econometric strategy to evaluate what is the impact of some initiatives, some projects, some programs on the ground, and then inform this back to the firm so that it can retrofit the good things that they are doing or correct if there's something that can be improved. Right, so in terms of favelas populations, as you mentioned, favelas are urban slums in Brazil, right? So I'm Brazilian by background. And what we were analyzing is how e-commerce firms charge populations that live in favelas and if they charge similarly to populations that are not in favelas. So for programs like this, what we did, we compared zip codes both inside and outside favela, but they are really on the neighborhood, right? So they are basically meters apart, and we evaluate what was the likelihood of e-commerces to deliver goods or to charge higher prices conditional on delivery. So this helps to understand how the pricing strategy is different for inside and outside, and then understand also what are the aspects of these e-commerce firms, what are their assets, their investments that help mitigate different charge or different prices for those communities. right? In the Amazon rainforest, just to give you another example, we had this firm, is a cosmetic firm that basically developed a line of products using Amazonian nuts and fruits, right? So they use those fruits, those forest inputs to develop their products. What we wanted to see is that once this firm enters new municipalities or starts supply relationship with Amazonian communities, new Amazonian communities, what was the impact of this initiative in terms of forest conservation, right? And what we found is that in comparison to the locations that they could have entered but they didn't, they had a huge effect in terms of fostering forest conservation. So while the Amazon throughout 2 decades lost an area bigger than California, the areas where this firm had supply chain relationships, they managed to preserve an area equivalent of the state of New Jersey. So it's really trying to econometrically find ways to test the programs, evaluate if they are generating social or environmental impact, and then using this knowledge to inform both the program but also communicate to the community so other projects in similar lines can be developed.
That's very interesting. And I think it's amazing that you're working so close with the Brazilian favelas because you're from there and it's great that you're giving back. So, kind of expanding more on that, given your experience with these Brazilian favelas and the Amazon rainforest, how do you see Gen Z's or younger people's role in driving sustainable development in challenging socioeconomic contexts? And what unique perspectives or approaches can we bring to the table?
Yeah, I think first, Gen Z is way more aware of those problems and way more sensible to those problems, right? Like to the importance of understanding these problems. I think the new generation has really this willingness and this drive to make change happen, right? So I'm very happy to see this on my students and to see this in the younger folks that I talk about those topics, right? So I think this is fundamental. It's really this drive, this motivation to see a change in the agenda, change in the perspective of those problems, improve the conditions for populations that are disenfranchised, but also improve the conditions in the world. The second interesting aspect that I think Gen Z brings to the table is that you guys are way more connected, way more savvy technologically than my generation is. And I'm not too far away from Gen Z, I'm a millennial, but I see that the new generation is way more integrated with technologies, with advanced technologies, and is not only concerned about those important problems, but also has the knowledge, has the information, has the capability on how to use technology to as a tool to access those problems, to better understand those problems, and hopefully to help on the solution of those problems, right? So I think many of the sustainable development goals, as we were talking, I also work on healthcare management, specifically for HIV treatment of patients in Africa. There are technologies that are readily available, such as electronic medical records, that you can implement, and I have a study that is showing that implementing electronic medical records in settings such as Malawi contributes to retain patients that are HIV positive under treatment, and also contribute for them not to spread the disease in their communities and avoid their deaths and the death of relatives that might also have the disease. So in other words, there are technologies that can help us to fulfill the mission of accomplishing those goals. And I think your generation has much more knowledge and is much more attuned on how to use these technologies to pursue a better life and a better good for the great majority of the population. So I would really incentivize, I think this very own initiative that you are founder and pushing forward of having a podcast, having conversations with people, exchange ideas, broadcasting it more broadly, transmitting this knowledge to more people. I think this is something that your generation brings to the table that is really, really valuable, right? Engaging in those topics, but also making it more accessible to others. So I think hopefully gonna see in a couple of years more progress on those goals, and this thanks to older generation folks like myself, but especially to your generation that's more attuned, more capable, and also already acting on those goals early on.
Definitely. And I think a lot of it comes from your generation as well. passing on the knowledge to us because I would be nowhere without my mentors and my parents teaching me about these things and actually telling me that's an important issue to care about. So I just wanted to mention that. So kind of switching gears to corporations, how can corporations and businesses balance the pursuit of profit along with social and environmental responsibilities? And what are the benefits of adopting these sustainable business practices?
Yeah, this is a famous $1 million question, right? So I
Mhm.
think this is a conversation that pleases me a lot because it relates a lot to my research, but also what I do in teaching. So I
Mhm.
think as we started saying, these problems on the sustainable development goals, they are very complex, right? So it's very difficult to find one solution. But the interesting part is that some of those problems, they have win-win opportunities, or there are opportunities that you can at the same time have a social impact, have an environmental impact, and have profit out of it. Usually in economics, what we see is that many of those problems, they are related to what is called market failures, right? So you have a problem that the market solution or the firms, the businesses, they cannot necessarily directly address. But there are ways, either by incorporating technology or either by applying the capabilities and resources of firms, to solve or to overcome those market failures. So I will give again the example of this firm that I analyze and evaluate their impact in the Amazon. So what this firm called Natura did that I found that was brilliant is that they realized that there is a set of consumers that are interested in sustainability, that are willing to pay more for a cream, a lipstick, a soap, or shampoo that have a positive ecological footprint, right? So that are sourced with responsible practices that use Amazonian ingredients. So we have consumers that are willing to pay. At the same time, you have people in the Amazon that are producing or that are collecting, harvesting those inputs that are preserving the forest, but they don't have any economic benefit in doing that, right? It's actually for them would be more economically advantageous if they just sell the land and move to big cities, or if they clear cut the forest and redeploy the area for conventional agricultural purposes, such as soybean, cattle raising, or corn production. So what those firms saw is that, well, we have demand on one side from the consumers, we have potential supply on the other side. What we don't have is a way to connect these two market extremes. And what they did was like, okay, how about we source inputs from the Amazon? We get those inputs, develop our lines of creams and etc. We sell to consumers, capture those rents of people that are willing to pay more, and we transfer part of this rent back to the communities that are in the Amazon, such as that now is economically advantageous for them to preserve the forest because the forest became an asset. So, in long story short, I think corporations can find in these market failures ways to overcome them by internalizing what we call externalities. In this case, an environmental externality, right? You just transfer money from consumers that are concerned about these issues with people that are actually providing solution to those issues. So you become a bridge. And we can see again, I think your generation and more recently, many platforms that do that. When you think about how you use your cell phone in the past, you have to call a cab, but not necessarily you trust the person that is driving. The driver is also concerned, not necessarily knows who they are picking up. Now the platforms give you the information: is this driver reliable? Is this passenger reliable? How many trips did they make? And the payment occurs only in the platform. So you internalize a lot of those externalities, you connect those two extremes more easily, and you provide a better service and a better service, and at the same time you can provide a social good. In this case, you can provide trust, right, across the two parts that are exchanging. In the case of environment, you can provide more forest conservation, and so on and so forth. So I would say corporations, and especially current managers and leaders of those corporations and future leaders of those corporations have to, really look for market failures, really look for opportunities to actually bring those two extremes of the market together, overcome the market failure, and hopefully internalize some of those externalities, and therefore resulting in better social outcomes, better environmental outcomes, and profitable business. There are plenty of business opportunities there that are yet to be realized precisely because we need this more intelligent, more smart management of the system, trying to see where are the win-win situations, right?
I really like what you said about using sustainability as a business advantage rather than a disadvantage, because I think right now we see a lot of businesses seeing it as, they have to incorporate it and it's just a loss of money or, it's a waste of budget. But if they actually include it, it could help their profits, like you said. So I really like that point. And I think that word needs to get out and we need to make that more global. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, it's not that all the problems will be solved this way, but there are like a lot of problems that if corporations think smartly on how actually
Mhm.
it's possible actually to overcome those market failures, they can create great business opportunities. On the projects that you kindly mentioned at the introduction about inclusive innovation, many of those corporations, big firms, were engaging in developing countries such as Brazil, China, India, South Africa. They were actually looking for opportunities in which they could adapt their products and target more to populations that were in most need, fulfilling the need of those populations to access those products, but at the same time creating good business opportunities. So I think there's plenty of ways by which firms can do that, have profit, and also contribute to improve the quality of life and improve the quality of the ecosystems in which they operate.
Yeah. My final question is about your research and the work you've done. So, you research a lot about econometric methods with ethnographic techniques, correct? So, how can these mixed method approaches help corporations better understand and address the challenges that come with sustainable development, especially with engaging the younger generations and bringing us in?
Yeah, so just to clarify, when we talk about mixed methods approach, we are basically talking about doing data analysis and doing econometric statistic analysis, but at the same time doing qualitative analysis, going to the field, talking to the people, collect qualitative information from those visits and interviews, right? So I think again, going back to our starting point, those problems are extremely complex. So I don't think you're gonna solve or understand really these problems by only running data on your statistical program or your computer. And you also will not be able to fully understand only by talking to people, right? You have to combine both because one supports the other. At the same time, you can do a data analysis, do a statistical effort to identify the causes, the causal mechanism between variables, right? So in this case that I was mentioning, we were able to pin down that was actually the entry of this firm in the locations that was contributing to preserving the forest, or was actually when we see that the zip code is inside the favela, we see that this is what drives the price to go up on e-commerce. But at the same time, we need to go to the field and understand from the perspective of the people that live there, that actually experience their reality, to fully inform the mechanisms, right? So to fully inform what's going on. So yes, we saw that the firm is contributing to save the forest, but how does this happen? When I went to the field and stayed there in the Amazon, talked to the people, they said like, okay, now we get more money because the firm pays us for the supply of those inputs. And now we think it's better to keep the forest standing instead of moving from here or instead of converting it to conventional agriculture. And then I went back to the data and tested that, and I saw that indeed the areas where they entered, there was a reduction in the conversion for soy, cattle, and corn raising, and there was an increase for Amazonian agriculture, such as acai, such as Brazil nut, and so on and so forth. In the favela one, same thing. Many people on the ground, when I stayed in the favela, live there, talk to them, they say like, oh, there are some farms that actually they have stores here, or if they don't have store, we can go to the store that are nearby and pick up our products. So some of those firms employ people from the location so they know better how to distribute. And then I went back to the data and tested that again. So again, this duality of going from the data to the field and back and forth helps you to have a better understanding of the entire phenomena and gives you more access to information that will be valuable to, one, understand the problem, and second, hopefully contribute to the solution of the problem in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. Your work that you're doing is incredible and it's helping so many people. And I really do hope it becomes, a global movement because it's so needed in Brazil, but it's also so needed all the way across the world. And thank you so much for coming here and talking to me today. I've learned so much, and genuinely, these conversations is what matters so much, especially now when climate change becomes a bigger and bigger issue. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you. Thank you so much for providing the platform and the opportunity. And I really incentivize everybody that is listening to keep going on this path. I think we have a lot of work to do, but it's good to count with more competent people to help us achieve solution for many of those problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and see you in the next one.